Sure, yes. Gerard Ahern,
Present.
Andy Kishitz,
Yes.
Brad Reed,
Present.
Gabrielle Romano,
Here.
and Elizabeth Hutchins.
Here.
Okay, so we'll start the hearing then. So this is a continuation from the February 1st hearing. And it's probably should be a pretty productive meeting because on March 2nd this year, we received the applicant's revised submission for the application documents, formally downsizing the proposed project from 11 to 8 units. And the new submittal documents included Dillison Roy 228 2022 revised comprehensive permit plans, revised plan set dated same date, and revised stormwater report dated that date. So the materials, I believe, have been provided to Horsey Witten. And do we have to, can you confirm, Valerie, that Horsey Witten has now an updated agreement that they can review these documents and they have enough funds to review them?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, that's good. And so given that, we'll have the applicant and or his engineering team give an overview of the new documentation, and then we can have some questions and answers.
Sure. Thanks very much, Mr. Chair.
Can I just interrupt very quickly? Do we have an update on the status of whatever you had to file with Massachusetts, the state, to re-up your whatever it was?
Yeah, it's a business license.
Yes, yeah.
It's on file with the town and everything. It's in good
Okay.
standing also.
Okay.
I took it to the next level and ordered a certificate of good standing, and I sent it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I was in my sort of the question and answers period, but yeah, that's good that you brought that up.
No problem.
Okay, all right.
Thank you very much. My name is Greg Roy with Dillison Roy, and I'm representing the applicant, Jim, who's also with us this evening. And as you said, we did do a rather significant change to the plans, and I'll highlight that in a moment. Is it appropriate for me to share my screen, Valerie, or would you like to? Okay.
It should be good for you now.
Okay. I don't even want to assume.
Yeah.
All right.
Like to give Valerie a little break.
Yeah. Every town does it differently, so I can't remember which ones allow it and which ones don't. Anyways, okay. So I'm just starting off here with the previously submitted plan with the 11 units, just to kind of get to refresh everybody's memory. This was the plan that we submitted to you last time we were here, with 11 units clustered around the cul-de-sac. After the last meeting, Jim and myself and our team regrouped a little bit, and in light of the comments that we had been receiving both at the last meeting but also prior, and some of the comments that we some of the issues that started to poke their head at us a little bit. Jim made the decision to reduce the density from 11 units down to 8 units. And that does a couple of things for us, but I'll go over those in a second, but I'll just kind of give you an overview of where we're at with the plan here. So the plan's in a lot of ways very similar. We still have a cul-de-sac, a roadway coming up through the middle of the site. The cul-de-sac is located in the same location as it was before. But you can see we've reduced the number of units. The previous plan had units along this abutting property, and also one unit right in this location here. And this plan revision allowed us to move those units to the back of the site, which kind of gets them further away from our closest abutter, which we see as a benefit. It also allowed us to, because we now don't need to accommodate and allow building footprint space, particularly right here through the middle of the site. We were able to move the road further away from this wetland area. So it allowed us to be responsive to the concerns we were receiving on the relative to the wetlands impacts and buffer zone impacts that we had proposed. It also allowed us to move the Unit 1 building completely outside of the buffer zone. So, you know, it just kind of softened the blow a little bit relative to wetlands permitting impacts in particular, and sort of reduces the magnitude of the waivers that we need to request from your board relative to the town's local wetland protection bylaw. Other things that we did, one of the comments that we heard last meeting was to take a look at the wastewater system for the site. If you recall, we were proposing the wastewater system back here in the back of the site, which is uphill, and we had septic tanks and pump chambers and a pump chamber located down here that was going to pump up back up to the system, back up to the leaching system. One of the effects of relocating units to the back of the site, and it freed up some space in this location for the location of the leaching field, so that now we have a much simpler system both to construct and also to operate. All 7 of these units would be gravity feed to this leaching field. This system, this unit is still about a foot or two, 1 to 2 feet too low to pump to get by gravity. Excuse me. So I do still need to pump this building, but that won't pose any issues. We don't need any waivers of any kind to do that. But 7 of the units are now accessing the leaching field by gravity, which makes for a less complicated system for sure, and both to install and also to operate in the future. The other thing that reduction in the density allowed for was to add in some flexibility relative to the affordable units. So we would have total of 8 units, 2 of which would be affordable. And although we're still proposing, of course, an age-restricted development, when we updated the wastewater calculations, we included wastewater flow for 2 non-age restricted units. So in the event that we go forward with the lottery system for the affordable units, and a family that qualifies, the way I understand it is, if a family sort of that qualifies, I don't want to say wins the lottery, but is successful in making it through the lottery selection, that you really have to allow them to be able to have access to that unit. So we've allowed for that in our wastewater calculations, and we've increased the wastewater flow for those 2 units to 220 gallons per day to accommodate non-age restricted 2-bedroom units. So that has an advantage on that front as well. We also have reducing the number of units also, I think without question puts us below the, however way you look at it, puts us below the public water supply threshold. And we provided calculations to that effect on our utility sheet. But if you just in summary, 6 of the units, worst case scenario, 6 of the units would be age restricted, and 2 of the units, if families were to participate in the lottery, 2 of the units would be could be non-age restricted. So we've done the math to show the maximum number of occupants that we'd have here, which we've calculated at 20. So you'd have 6 units age restricted, which would be double occupancy, two occupants for 12, and then you'd have, assuming that you had a family occupying both of the 2-bedroom units, that would be the affordable units. If you had double occupancy in both of those bedrooms in those units, you could have a maximum of 4 theoretically in each of those units. So you'd have a total of 20 occupants, which is below the 25 occupant threshold for the public water supply system. So, you know, the change really had not only a density reduction, which of course takes some of the pressure off the site relative to you know, setbacks and waivers requested, but also had the effect of resolving some of the sort of, I'll call them dangling chads that existed before relative to wastewater and affordable units and drinking water issues. So, and then of course the change resulted in some modifications to the drainage system. We actually converted the basin in the front of the site, which was proposed to be an underground infiltration system. We simplified that to an above ground, more conventional looking basin. It will still be an infiltration basin. We are still infiltrating all of the runoff from in that area, but it'll just be more of a conventional detention basin. That had the impact of simplifying the drainage system quite a bit. It helps on the operation and maintenance side of things long term for the community. It's a little bit easier. Well, it's quite a bit easier to operate and maintain moving forward. Let's see, what else did I want to say? I think that's, you know, plan related. That's about all I wanted to say. We did also prepare for your board's consideration of a list of waivers. Which was in our cover letter, which is also, I think, dated the 28th of February. So we went through and we tried to be pretty specific on that. So, you know, for example, the wells require some relief from the Board of Health well regulations, and we told you sort of on a per unit basis,
yep,
which relief is needed, so that you don't have to give a blanket waiver that could then be construed to apply to all the wells on the property. So we try to be as specific as we could on those waivers and break them out sort of line by line and unit by unit.
Well, that'll be helpful, because in the past applications, when we ultimately have to decide on the waivers, we do go and vote on individual waivers for individual units as necessary, you know, whatever. So
right.
It's much more beneficial to us to have it broken out like that. So I appreciate that detail.
Sure. No problem. So I think that oh, what I mean, one other thing that I guess I'll just point out, I meant to mention this earlier, but you can kind of see we did from a site layout standpoint, in order to get the units back here, we did introduce a sort of a shared driveway portion back here, which I think, you know, works out pretty nice. We didn't really we explored moving the cul-de-sac a little bit to see if we could reshuffle things, but it just the location that it's shown on the plan is really the best spot for it. And so we have a sort of an offloaded configuration over here with these 2 units. I think that's it.
I'm
sorry.
to deal with this side facing the 2 units. We still have to do the same, like retaining wall and the same clearing and depth and all that.
We still have a few retaining walls, but they're a lot less. We were able to reduce the size of the retaining walls and the length and the height. Both. So we have a wall here and a wall here, which you can kind of see it on the grading plan here. I'll move over. So we still have some grading behind those units, but the walls are quite a bit smaller than they were before. The wall went kind of all the way down that property line before. And over here, the same thing. We have grading here, but the retaining wall really went most of the way along this wetland buffered edge. So we were able to really minimize that and reduce the size, both horizontally and vertically on that. So, so pretty much every metric that we looked at got quite a bit easier.
In the home sizes, so I mean, they all look, I mean, they look pretty square or rectangle. I mean, did those change dramatically, or are those still the same home sizes from the?
Go ahead, Jim.
I'll speak on a couple of things. One thing I'd like to mention that was kind of prior to Greg coming too is if you look, we actually moved the mailbox location and we changed the amount of parking too. We got that way out of the buffer zone. That was a big concern for some of the abutters. So we made it just a turnout. I talked to Rusty, the postmaster. I told him what we're going to do there. So he's very supportive of that type of arrangement. So I got that kind of pre-approved from the postmaster, then gave that information to Greg. So we moved that out. That was a big concern. But on the house sizes, they stayed the same. We lost one variety. We had 3 before, but bringing the numbers down. So we have 2 different sizes. The sizes didn't change. We have a 60 by 50 and a 65 by 40, 4 units and 4 units for counts. And the reason why the footprint, just to remind everybody, these are going to be single story living. So, I mean, that would be a huge, the square footage didn't change from like 18 to like 2,100. Because you'll lose 440 or more square feet in a 2-car garage attached. So that's, when you look at some of the other units, even in Bolton, like on Sugar Road, that footprint seems smaller, but those are 2 stories. So, you know, my goal was always to do an aged in place type of house. If somebody wanted to stay there forever, they could, and not have to go up and down stairs, and also enjoy the full space they're paying for. Other than just holidays when they would have a visitor, if they couldn't get up the stairs, that would go up the stairs, you know?
Okay.
So.
So unless Jim has anything else to add, that's all I had for you. Certainly happy to take any questions and comments. We're certainly always interested in that. I will just acknowledge, just in closing, just to acknowledge that I know you got the plans 2 weeks ago, and I just want to say out loud, that wasn't Jim's fault. That was his engineer's fault. So we're just really struggling to keep up with backlog here, and we're really trying to ramp up and get this thing to you at least a week before that. It just didn't happen. So I wanted to apologize to the board for that. We understand that this is certainly needs to be reviewed by Horsley and Witten, and we anticipate working through that in the upcoming weeks. So
Yeah, and it will also facilitate, say a scaled back design, scaled back project, the tweaks you've mentioned, and your inferred benefits to this. The boards in town will also have to look at the revisions as well, not just Horsley Witten, but at least it's now here, and I'm sure Valerie's got it out, and so that will help foster, moving this along like that.
I apologize if this was already discussed, but which 2 units do you have designated as affordable?
I have not designated any yet. My goal would be to, do the 2 certain sizes. I haven't picked the 2 yet, but it could be any 2 in that configuration,
I'm sorry, Jim, did you say 2 of different sizes?
Well, I have 2 different sizes, so my goal would be to do 1 at each. If it's going to be up to kind of the affordable customer, the non-market rate buyer, and if they want to go smaller rather than larger, I'd like to leave them that option.
I would like to get Joe Pesnola to weigh in on this, because I don't believe it's good practice to have the affordable units both be of a smaller size or both be of a larger size. They should fit in evenly with the distribution. And also, I'm wondering about unit 1. If you designate that as affordable, then that's kind of segregating it from the rest of the pack. So I'd like to ask Joe his opinion on those.
Certainly. The regulations state that the units need to be indistinguishable from the exterior. Now, I've had projects in which the units were considerably smaller, and that didn't pass muster because they were distinguishable. If you recall, on Farm Road, we had the lengthy discussion on the stone fronts, which went to the heart of that, issue. And if the affordables didn't have stone fronts and the market rates did, then they would be distinguishable.
Mhm.
As far as placement within the site plan, that's getting a little afield of the black and white within the regulations, and whether it putting it there makes it distinguishable from the others, whether it's a market rate or affordable, there's pluses and minuses for it to be there. If this project only had one affordable unit and that was the only affordable unit, then I think you could say that it doesn't fall into the kind of equally distributed throughout the project argument. So I think the board would be in its right to ask that decision be made now, so that the board can have commentary on it. And then as far as Jim's comment with regards to the affordable buyers' choice, they really don't have choice. If there are any extras that are offered to the market rate units, the affordable buyers cannot purchase those extras because they are perceived to be tapped out at their 30% of income affording a mortgage. There's always a very razor thin line between them getting a mortgage with a bank and them meeting the affordability criteria for their income. So I think that if there's 2 units that are offered, I would say to the applicant that one of each should be affordable. And I think the board really can decide on or have discussion on whether that front unit, it's appropriate for that front unit to be, or whether you want it on the interior back. I don't think that would be a challengeable condition if you required that be put forward.
If that mirrors one of the other units out of the 8 units, they said there's 2 types of it. Mirrors one of the other units, and he chose to have that as affordable and one of the others. As long as they're it looks similar to one of the market rates, right? And whatnot, then we'd be fine.
Correct.
I don't see that as an issue, really. I mean, it's close to the other houses down, those 2 houses that are on the road, the pre-existing houses. So I don't see that as an issue. On the other hand, I just wanted to comment. I think this plan is much better than what was filed originally. I really like it. I think it solved a lot of the issues that came up. So I just congratulate you on that. I think it's a good job.
Yeah. I think it's a good point by Andy to bring up, at least to be sure that we're thinking about the aspect of, yes, the homes are supposed to be indistinguishable, as Joe mentioned, but the spacing, right, because it, optically on the schedule here, it does look like if you say that were the only unit, which it won't be because there's 2 units, yeah, that would look like they're tucked away, although they're tucked away in the front versus in the back. Sometimes people seem to think they want to hide out the affordable, but it's a good point to ask by Andy. So I'm glad that there's some clarity on that.
So I have a question about this shared leach field situation, and let me also preface anything I'm about to say tonight with, I also appreciate the effort that you guys put into changing this plan, because I feel like it is a lot better. And I do appreciate your ability to kind of be flexible with sort of where our concerns and the residents' concerns lie. But when we are talking about the shared leach field situation, so you say that there will be a pump for that first unit, correct? Because it has to go up a little bit to get into the tank. So what is the maintenance scenario for this shared system? I know there's going to be an HOA, or my understanding is that there's going to be an HOA for this neighborhood. So because it's a shared system, any maintenance that would go into any piece of this system would come from that HOA account. Does that question make sense? So like if unit one had an issue with the pump, unit one wouldn't be fully responsible for that. That would kind of come out of the HOA because it's a portion of that shared system. Is that a correct interpretation of how this would sort of be set up?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, yeah, in short, yes, the Board of Health is going to require an operation and maintenance plan that's referenced in the master deed. And they're going to require an escrow fund be established for the replacement and, general operation and maintenance costs, and also replacement costs of certain components of the system, so that there's money available.
Okay.
And that's typically, for lack of a better word, the Board of Health typically does like a tri-party agreement on that escrow fund, so that if the condominium association fails to do something and there's a public health issue, that the town and the Board of Health has the ability to access the funds that are available to initiate anything that's required. So that all will happen under the and that's all related, by the way. That's all Title V related. So that's not something that's waivable. So we're not asking for any relief relative to that.
Yeah, the reason I was asking is just because, so I don't have a shared septic system, thankfully, but there are a number of people in my neighborhood that do have shared systems. And I know there's been a lot of, call it discussion about the maintenance and, responsibility for the system and who's sort of responsible for getting things pumped. And if I'm getting my tank pumped, does that come from our shared account, right? That's set for the maintenance of the system and all these things. And after having the discussion about potentially having that first home being that, whatever the term is, the lower income rate, I have some concerns there about that maintenance piece, but it sounds like they would not be responsible because, I mean, if they have pumps, that's obviously more of a complicated system, more things potential to fail, more things you have to pay for. But if that's completely going to be maintained, the expectation is that that's being maintained by the condominium association, and that kind of eliminates that. But
yeah, I think it has to be. I think it's got to be included. It's a little odd because you have one that's pumped and the others are all gravity. But I think, I'm just thinking this through for the first time. But I think it has to be. I think you have to. It wouldn't be fair. Some people are probably going to say it's unfair either way you go, but I don't think it would be fair to require that one unit to maintain their own pump when everybody else doesn't have to in the development. So I think that's the way that would be set up.
Yeah, the way I see it is it's all like on common land, like in a condominium association. That land around that unit one is not private. So when the pipe leaves that unit, the foundation wall of that unit, it's in common space.
Right.
So it's not like we're gonna have to create an easement for that pump to go work on it. It's in the common land with the condominium association. So
yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. It'd be like kind of like the driveway, right? If the driveway on unit one needed repair, that would be a condominium association concern, even though that it's just for unit one. So.
Or even plowing, like you thought you had to plow. I mean, they have so much less space at the front, but I'm sure it's going to be a shared cost on plowing through the whole development, so that everyone's sort of equitable.
Yep. No, it's a good question though.
Okay. And then the other question I have is about the infiltration area B, which looks like it's going to live under the cul-de-sac. Is it correct to interpret that will be overflowing into the wetland buffer? Is that what I'm seeing there?
Yes, only on the very large storm events. So
okay, so can you just speak a little bit to that, because that just how it's written in the plan makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable, but I'd like to kind of understand that infiltration area. And I do see that you've provided with the information about the system that you would be potentially installing, but I'd love to know a little bit more about how that also is maintained long-term and who's going to be responsible for that and all that information.
Sure. Actually, let me go to this view here. So in cross section, so if you were to be able to stand and look at the side, cut the system in half and look directly at it, this is what it would look like here.
Mhm.
Are you all still seeing my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank
okay. This is what it would look like.
Mhm.
They have these plastic chambers that are placed in rows next to each other in a crushed stone bed, and the entire crushed stone is wrapped with a filter fabric to sort of keep the fine materials from sealing off the interface there for the exfiltration. So the way this works is the flow from the catch basins and the other inlets to the system flow into this entrance manhole. And then this manhole is a little bit exotic, I'll say. We have there's what's called a weir in here. We kind of have a dam that we build in that manhole that forces all of the flows from the initial flows from the we call it the first flush from the site into this hatched row here, which is what's known as an isolator row. That isolator row is isolated from the stone. So we actually wrap the chamber with another layer of filter fabric that keeps so it receives that first flush, and the first flush of runoff in any storm event is where you're going to get the most sediment load and suspended solids and things that will enter the system. So what we're doing is we're capturing that, allowing them to settle in that isolator row. And then as the storm continues and we get more flow, it fills up and it flows over the dam that's in this manhole, and then fills up the rest of the structure, leaches down into the stone, and then filtrates into the soil below. So that isolator row is accessible through this manhole, but also through these inspection ports, and can actually be jetted and vacuumed out. So that's part of the operation and maintenance of the system. You periodically need to inspect that, routinely, like yearly. And then when the sediment load gets to a certain point, that needs to be dealt with and jetted. You can put a jet in here, jet the row, and you can suck that out with a vacuum style truck. All of this is meant to protect and preserve the infiltrative capacity of the system. So we're trapping the particles that are in the stormwater that would, if left just to flow into the stone, that would seal off that interface, and over time they would diminish the capacity. So that's how that works. Now on the outlet side, there's another, we call it a weir, but it's a dam, for lack of a better word. And this is what restricts the flow going out of the system. So this dam is actually what keeps and forces the flow to pond and forces it to exfiltrate. There's a low flow. We drill a hole in that dam to let a small amount of water out, so that sort of restricts that release rate, and sort of lengthens the time by which that is released to eliminate the impacts downstream. High flows, anything over the 100-year storm event, will exit over the top of that dam for relief, and then be able to bypass down to the outlet. So all of that has been designed in accordance with the stormwater management policies to make sure that the post-developed runoff that is directed to that outlet, to that wetland, is less than or equal to, in our case, less than in all storms, to the runoff that's going there currently today. So we did a comparison of the pre-developed watershed runoff patterns, and then we compared what it would be with this system, and we did a comparative table in our drainage report that shows that with the implementation of this system and the construction of the system, that all of those flows will actually be reduced as you go towards the after construction.
And what is this basin capturing from?
Yep, great question. We have two catch basins I wish I could pull up another map. It'd be more clear. I have a watershed map, but it'd be too hard to get. So all the runoff from the cul-de-sac area flows down to these two catch basins and then actually goes back to this system. We also receive most of the roof runoff also flows into this system from the cul-de-sac area, and all of the area on the back here flows in. We've got some additional inlets. They're going to pick up the overland flow and get that into the system as well. So you can kind of see we have swales that come around here. Another one that comes off of this shared driveway with another catch basin inlet here that also discharges the flow into that. So basically, with the exception of the back parts of some of these roofs, all of the, and even all of these roofs, all of this roof, all of this roof, all of this roof, all flow and get infiltrated into that infiltration basin.
Okay.
And then the other one down here receives flows from these two catch basins down.
Yeah.
So all the flows from the rest of the site go into this basin, with the exception of a very small amount of water downhill of these two basins.
Yep.
We put a very small infiltration system here just to catch and make sure we're not discharging water onto the South Bolton Road.
Okay.
Pavement.
Okay, so just to clarify that, so from that top, the unit 2, basically where those other two catch basins are, so between that and unit 1, that's actually going into the infiltration basin, not into the infiltration area A. So infiltration area A is going to specifically, there's 2 catch basins there that will catch what would roll into the road.
Yeah, it's basically just
Okay.
a little bit more, but basically just the road from this point down.
Okay,
That
and
was
then
the-
that infiltration basin there, what is the proposed function of that? Like, how is that basin supposed to work?
That's going to be so there'll be that's going to be just an open basin, so it'll look like an excavated pond, but it'll be dry. So
Yeah.
we intend it to be a dry basin. There'll be a much functioning similar to the isolator row I just explained. We'll have more of a conventional forebay, so we'll sort of dam up a small portion just as we enter into the pond, and that is intended to hold up that water, take that first flush again, and settle out the sediment and suspended solids that we have. As the storm continues, the water level would build up in the pond, and it would. But we've designed this one to completely infiltrate up to and including the 100-year storm event. So the soils here are very good and sandy. Groundwater table is very low. So we do not have an outlet release out of this basin up to and including the 100-year storm event. But if we had an act of God, which we've had pretty much every summer for the last 3 to 4 years, at least one, or if not 2 or 3, we have an emergency overflow weir here where it would spill down and enter into this catch basin where it discharges across the street. But that would only be an emergency, greater than 7-inch rain, tropical storm event, basically, is what we're looking at. So.
And just to be clear, we're comfortable with the overflow from that infiltration basin going into that catch basin based on its current functionality. And the reason I'm asking is because I do drive by this area on periodic occasion. And I know that it has helped somewhat the flooding that has been seen in South Bolton Road. But in my opinion, I still don't think it's the best best design ever, and there still tends to be a little bit of runoff there. So I am a little bit nervous about, and again, I know it's like act of God situation. So like, if we're having a tropical storm, like nobody should even be on the roads to begin with. So that's an issue. But that being said, right, I just want to make sure that we are comfortable with that type of flow.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the DPW director will want to weigh in on that. But I mean, in pretty much most projects I work on, it's deemed if I can show through drainage calculations that I'm not discharging anything up to the 100-year storm event,
Yeah.
that's typically I mean, in some towns it's less, and sometimes they look at the 25-year as the threshold, or the 50-year. But in this case, the 100-year is pretty much the largest storm that we'd be reviewing. And
Yeah.
again, I have a 0 discharge out of that, so I don't
Okay.
anticipate any. So anything over that, you're talking about.
Right. I mean, it's dramatic.
Yeah, and even that,
There's going to be worse problems than a little
well,
bit
that's the thing. Yeah,
of runoff over South
yeah,
Baltimore.
yeah.
But
Not-
yeah,
not that
okay.
not that we're looking for that,
But
but
theoretically, it would
Mhm.
only be in like 100-year storm extreme
Yeah.
situation where we would even have overflow that we would even need to
Yep.
worry about there.
that's the way that's designed.
Okay.
And there's an operation and maintenance program that goes along with this basin as well. It's quite a bit easier because everything's above grade and you can see it.
Yep.
But the stormwater report has an operation and maintenance plan and operation and maintenance plan that's in it.
Yep.
That includes, sort of it's intended to be a summary of the stormwater system and the operation and maintenance tasks written in like a layperson's manner, so that it can be included in the condominium association documents or the master deed, and so that someone can look at this and be like, oh, okay, I got to go out and mow this once a year. Okay, I know how to do that, or that kind of thing. So
Okay.
so yeah, but
Mostly we'll look at all the calcs and make sure that, they're as purported, they're reasonable, or, whatever. So we'll get a little more clarity on that, Liz, as well.
That's perfect. Thank you. I know that was kind of a lot, but I appreciate you walking.
no,
me
I love talking about drainage. I could talk about it all night.
through.
Any other questions from the board, or from Valerie, or from Joe?
Nope.
I've got a number. If others want to go ahead, though, that's fine too.
Well, it sounds like you're up then.
Sure. All right, great. So one topic that I still do have concerns over is the wetlands in the area. So there's still a portion of the roadway and a portion of Unit 7 within that 100-foot buffer. And I know that since the 2019 wetland delineation, I believe there was a vernal pool that has been certified, and the Conservation Commission did not review or confirm the delineation of the wetlands by Unit 7, so that other pocket. So it could have greater impacts on the site than is currently shown. So an ANRAD or an NOI has not yet been filed with the Conservation Commission, and that's not a requirement of this permit. But it is true that since October, we've been hearing from the applicant that this would happen during the ZBA's process. So I just wanted to know if that is still intended to happen within the public hearing process or after, because that's really how the zoning board is going to get comment from the Conservation Commission. Otherwise, we'll just need to insert conditions to cover our bases.
Yeah, I mean, through the process, I'll speak on that, that was my intent. But as we move forward and we reduce the amount of units and we've pulled everything out, for me to go to conservation, I got to know that these units are in the right spot. So I'm probably going to say at this point that I really need a decision from the ZBA so I can move forward with the locations. So that's what I, go ahead.
Yeah, if I could talk to that a little bit. So filing an ANRAD is one thing. That is hasn't been done yet, to your point. But that's certainly something that could be done. But it's a little bit challenging in this case because the wetlands, with the exception of the one that you were just referring to, Valerie, in the back of Unit 7, the other one's off site, so it's a little hard to. You can't actually, just kind of ran into this issue in Groton. The Conservation Commission can't go on another adjacent property and certify a wetland line without permission from the property owner. So it's a little bit tricky here. So that's sort of the issue with the ANRAD. The notice of intent, and I talked to this with Jim as I was getting involved here a few months back. The notice of intent filing really in a 40B project really needs to follow the comprehensive permit. And the reason why is the authority to grant waivers from local wetland bylaws, it lies with this board. And so it's putting the cart before the horse to go to the Conservation Commission and ask them for an order of conditions when we don't even know what waivers that we're gonna receive. So we need to have that the zoning resolved with the waivers so that we can go and then file the correct filing with the Conservation Commission pursuant to the Wetlands Protection Act for sure, but then still pursuant to the sections of the Wetland Protection Bylaw that we haven't been granted waivers from. Now, that doesn't preclude us from going to the Conservation Commission and reviewing this with them and trying to solicit some comments for you on try to facilitate that that discussion so that your board can receive some direct input from the Conservation Commission. And I don't want to speak for Jim, but I think we've discussed in the past doing that, making that stop. And I think we're at a point now we can do that. I think that if we had done it on the previous plan, we would have just been doing it again. So I think, fortuitously here, we haven't made that step yet, but I think we can certainly look to do that.
Sounds like that would be helpful, right, Valerie?
It really would be. Yes, I do understand what Greg is saying though about wanting to confirm locations of structures. And it's, again, it is up to the applicant's discretion, but it would be helpful to, if there is a possibility of having some sort of conversation with the Concom prior to a filing, that could be very useful for us.
Yep.
And then just trying to quickly move through these questions. So I have yet to gather feedback from other departments and boards, but I'll need to do that as there are some considerable changes here. I just want to make sure that DPW has reviewed the runoff and public safety is all right with that. The cul-de-sac and the shared driveway space off of that. So I'll follow up with that hopefully prior to another public hearing. I did want to know if you've been able to look at site distances at all. I know that South Bolton Road is unposted, but it's 40 miles an hour. I don't know if that was reviewed as part of these plans.
We did measure the site distances, and those are on the revised set of plans.
Okay, I just didn't see them. Thanks.
Yeah, they're on. I can't remember which sheet. We put them on one of the sheets.
Great.
I can't remember what sheet. Take me forever, but we did put that on there.
Okay, I can take a quick look through. And then.
So you're saying that road is a 40-mile-an-hour road? Yeah,
that's why I wanted to call that out. It feels like you're speeding if you're going. I haven't gone 40 on that road, but yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, people honestly, they fly down Sobo, like it's dangerous. Yeah. So that is a legitimate concern. Valerie, I'm actually seeing them on the layout plan.
Great.
But aside from that, I do actually have a question to kind of bounce off that. Do you have any lighting? Are you going to be doing any lighting, I guess, for this project, like public lighting?
No.
Okay.
The landscape plan didn't have any on it.
Okay.
The abutters have brought that up as a serious concern for no lighting.
Totally understand. I'm just thinking.
I'm not going to go there. Sometimes we get in a pinch on some projects where the public safety wants lighting and the neighbors fight about it and the neighbors live there. So this is scheduled
understood
with no lighting.
Yep.
On sheet C3, the grading and drainage plan, I just had a little nitpick. Is the proposed tree line intended to be the limit of clearing?
C3?
Yeah, C3.
Yeah, where are you
Okay.
looking?
Yeah, I
But
saw it
has-
around closer to unit 7.
Oh, 7.
This is like
There's,
proposed.
let's see, on the existing tree line isn't on there, but this is the proposed limited clearing. Yes,
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
right. Sorry about it. Yeah, proposed tree line, probably wasn't the greatest way to label that, but that is the proposed limited clearing. We
And
blended that in spots with the existing limited clearing. I don't have a great example of that because it doesn't show well on this plan, but yes, that's the limited
Okay.
clearing.
yeah, so it does strike me that there is, there is a lot of clearing on the site, of course. I'm wondering if you've considered phasing of clearing at all.
There's been no, what do you mean by phasing of the clearing? During construction, Valerie, or?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, sometimes,
A
I know there's a
majority-
lot of slope on the site as well. So just thinking about erosion control during construction.
Yeah, again, the majority of the site is open around this cul-de-sac. And, it's been open, and previously it was a gravel pit. It was mined to build 495. So we have very good drainage. I would say during construction, that we're going to need to open it up because a lot of the materials are not going to be trucked in. They're going to be built from the site. So we're going to have to open it up in order to build the cul-de-sac, say. So I would talk to Greg about putting construction bays around the property in the proper locations to control the stormwater. Like we build some temporary ponds, construction ponds on the site is how I would plan on handling that concern.
Yeah, if I could add to that, on larger sites, we phasing is often involved. This is a pretty small site. There's really not, and it's actually back a lot where the 7 houses in the cul-de-sac are going to be built. You're really going to need to open that up in order to build it. And of course, to build that, you gotta open up the front of the site to do it. So it's just not, it's not a site that lends itself well to phasing. You pretty much have to build all of the infrastructure on the property before you can build a unit, right? So it's not one of those sites where you have a lot of road and you could look at maybe building a section of it in the drainage that relates to that section, and then work towards the back of the site. It's really, it's one of those sites that really is going to need to be built pretty much all at once. So well, I haven't looked at that, Valerie, specifically. I mean, just kind of trying to respond to your question here off the top of my head. It doesn't strike me as a site that really lends itself well to that. I will say, though, that just out loud, that there will certainly need to be a SWIP on this. It's greater than an acre of disturbance. So there'll be, we have an erosion control plan that's prepared, but along with that will be a stormwater pollution prevention plan that will be prepared in accordance with the EPA's general construction permit. I'm saying that wrong. I'm getting tired. I'm sorry. But and then that would be filed with the EPA prior to construction. And that document requires routine either weekly or bi-weekly inspections, and then other inspections when there's a quarter inch of rain fall during the times when the site is unstable. So completely during the construction period, and that is intended to prevent issues or mitigate issues with erosion control and during construction activities. So, phasing would be nice, but I think on this size site, it's just very difficult to think about how we would do that.
That makes sense. Let me see. Does the existing conditions plan, in your opinion, show all of the 18-inch diameter trees, rock outcrops, stone walls, structures, all of that? I particularly along South Bolton Road, I think so the ZBA's application details for comprehensive permits do ask for, you know, those types of features to be noted on the plans. And you know, I know there are a lot of, or at least a number of large trees around the road itself. And I assume those, you know, those do need to be removed for the grading and the placement of infiltration system A.
Yeah, we actually have, we did send a survey crew out to do that. It happened on, I think, the 1st of March, and it didn't make it into this plan set.
Okay.
But we actually did do some supplemental work out there to pick up the trees along the frontage of the site, because there are some trees there that we have in that location. But just generally, we'll make sure that we respond to that. Valerie will, by way of either updating the plan or just giving the board a narrative with something that says that all of those details will be responsive to that requirement for the existing conditions.
I asked that in part too, knowing that South Bolton Road is a scenic road. So I don't know if you've had those discussions with, you know, if you've had the tree warden out perhaps to take a look at things, just to make sure there aren't any. I think the tree warden looks for trees of it's 1.5 inches or 2 inches or greater diameter. So he's even looking at smaller ones within the town's right of way. So
I'm not sure if we even have any that are in the right of way. The right of way is there's not a lot of right of way there. Okay. The pavement and the, so there may be 1 or 2 up in here, but I don't know that we need to take them down. So
great.
But we'll be responsive to that.
And then I just wanted to add my own comment on having the that unit A or unit 1 kind of toward the road. I know that I do have concern for having potentially one of the affordable units far from the other homes. It is pretty easy to get an us and them kind of feeling in a neighborhood, and you know, I have seen that in other developments. So it may not be a statutory requirement, but as Joe mentioned earlier, you know, it may be a defendable condition to kind of insist that those two affordable units are with the others around the cul-de-sac. And to that note, I think I know the answer to this question, but did you have any consideration given to having all 8 units around a cul-de-sac?
Yeah, I tried. I would have loved to have them back there. I just can't. There's just not enough real estate.
Yeah, just curious if that was a.
I was actually when I first set out to do this after Jim gave us the green light to update the plan. I was really hoping I was going to be able to do that, Valerie. I think it would have simplified things quite a bit, and but I just couldn't make it happen. So I mean, the only thing I could do is stick something right in here, but it's then you're feeling like you're pounding 10 gallons into a 5-gallon bucket again, even more so. So, and there's big slopes here, and we were trying to take the pressure off some of the excavation and things that happen on the site. So, yeah, it just seems to make sense to have one down there.
I have a quick comment. Why don't we just make a decision now that all the affordables will be on the cul-de-sac, and that'll solve the problem? I mean, no other, you know, it won't be isolated, and at this point, it takes it out of the, you know, any kind of controversial position. I mean, you got 8 units up, or 7 units up there. Why not?
It makes sense. It would make it easier. And there's 2 different unit styles there, so one of each up in that area. It would be, you know, it could be indistinguishable and it's taken care of. So
yeah,
that certainly would be easy. It would make our job easier, less scrutiny.
Joe, what's your thoughts on that? That would be fine if we agree to that now?
I think he's run.
I think
Joe had to leave at 7 yet.
Because he made some things that he made some comments early. I couldn't hear him fully, but I think that I don't know if we should do that at this point. I wish he was still around.
So Yeah, he just said that it was it's not statutorily required. There hasn't been any, there's no clear statement on where in the site they have to be located, though he did note that it could be a defendable condition to add.
I think it just makes it easier not to have that on the table. I think Andy raised a very valid point there, and we don't
I
need to
think-
go
Right.
be going back and forth on this.
And to Joe's point, he said if it were the only affordable, then yes, it would definitely be an issue, you would think. But the fact that there's going to be one other affordable, but
Yeah, I will say this, I count as Joe as all our experts, even mine, even though he basically represents the town, but he has a wealth of knowledge in the 40B.
Yeah.
So I would say if it's okay with Joe that we would we'll pull into affordables in the back along the cul-de-sac.
yeah, we can.
I'm not opposed to that as being the developer. I don't want to pinch the development in any way or lose any more units if we do that, you know?
No,
But if we can talk to Joe at a later point or get something in writing from Joe saying that is fine, then as a developer, I'd be fine with that.
right, okay, because he did mention before he left in the chat that let him know new date or if anything comes up. So we'll correspond with him to say, the preference indicated by the board is to have both affordables in the within the 7 backlog units.
Yeah,
and as long as they're one of each unit, is that a concern? And if he says no, then that's great.
Okay.
All right.
That would be great for me.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people. So
Well, I'll just quickly, my last comment is just that I didn't see any waivers from planning board, so subdivision rules and regs. So I don't know, we aren't able to really grant blanket waivers, but I was wondering if, this plan came before the planning board. One question we would be asking is whether there'd be a sidewalk constructed along the frontage. I know there's a sidewalk within the subdivision itself, but along South Bolton Road as well, they'd be looking for. And as well as, I didn't actually get out my scale, but the proximity of the home at 342 South Bolton Road may be within 100 feet of the Mallard Lane center line. So that might be a waiver as well.
Mallard, oh, well, I mean, it's not a subdivision.
Mhm.
So why would we need waivers to the subdivision regs?
Yeah, it is. It's something that we have asked of other comp permits.
Okay. All right, well, we'll review that. I mean, that's why we didn't do it.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have I mean, we're treating this like a common, basically like a common driveway. So I think you'll see we have some waivers relative to that section. And we designed it in the spirit of your subdivision road regulations, but technically speaking, I'm not sure that but we'll review it. Point noted.
Right. If you want to take a look at the common driveway rules and that could be a different issue. But I believe, the ZBA members should feel free to correct me if they feel like I'm wrong here. But I do believe it's listed in the ZBA's rules and regs.
Okay, if that's the case, then we'll review it.
All right.
One other specific to note based on that too from Valerie's comment, I think that they recently changed the subdivision rules and regs to require granite curbs. Is that correct, Valerie? Or so I think the curbing, I know you have bituminous concrete here, but I would highly recommend into looking at granite curbing because the bituminous is rough and everywhere we have it in town, it gets destroyed so easily. I know there's a cost associated with upgrading to granite, obviously. But I think that is now part of the subdivision rules and regulations. And it would be something that I would suggest looking into because
a point of Bolton history, the last director of public works, Mr. Brown, vehemently made arguments at the planning board not to have granite curbing. He wanted Cape Cod berms because granite curbing tore up his snow plows, and he was
Mhm.
sick and tired of replacing snow plows that crashed into the granite curbing. So, there may be a range war. That's all I'm saying.
It's good to
Yeah,
know. Good to
I
know.
remember those discussions over the years. Yeah. All right, well, we'll look at it. We'll look at the, I'm not prepared to go through that whole subdivision rules and regs analysis tonight, but we'll commit to taking a look at that and report it back.
Perfect. Any other questions from board, Valerie? And if not, do any of butters online have any questions?
Yeah, I think there is a hand up, Gerard.
Oh, yeah, and now you see that, Andy, thanks. I was looking at the plan so much I had, yeah. So Valerie, you want to open that question up to, it looks like Barry?
Yeah, he's able.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Barry Bushinsky. I'm a direct abutter. I live at 348 South Bolton Road. A few comments. I fully support no site lighting. I fully support no granite curbing. Cape Cod berms are fine. I have a question though relative to infiltration basin at the front of the site. It appears that there are two test pits that were done, test pits 1 and 2. And so Greg, I hope that the design of the infiltration basin is designed based on the soil type so that it minimizes any standing water, even on a small storm event. Because I don't support a chain link fence around the infiltration basin, and I'm hoping that you're not proposing a chain link fence around the basin.
Yeah, thank you very much for that comment. That's a great comment. We did size that, design that based on soil types. The basin's working depth is really only 3 to 4 feet, so we are not proposing a fence on that. And your point about dewatering and making sure that thing stays dry is valid. I actually, it is not shown on this plan, but I typically put a low flow wick drain at the bottom of these so that particularly when we have a situation like this time of year or 2 weeks ago, when you still have a frost condition and you have an early spring or a late winter rain event, that we still preserve the infiltrative capacity of the soils. We could certainly add that to the plan, but the intent is for this basin to completely dewater within it has to dewater. We have to show that it dewaters within 72 hours per stormwater management guidelines. And I believe that this one, based on the soils that are there, will dewater quite a bit faster than that. So, but that's a great question.
Okay, thank you very much. The other point is that I used to be on the planning board a long time ago, and I don't support any sidewalks on South Bolton Road. I think your design of having internal sidewalks within the development, but nothing along South Bolton Road is right on. So I can't imagine supporting any sidewalks on South Bolton Road. So it is, as Valerie noted, it is a scenic, it's a scenic road, and sidewalks would destroy that. My wife and I and all of the neighbors, we walk up and down, even though it is a 40-mile-per-hour street, we do walk up and down the street. There's a lot of activity on bikes and walking, and we have no problem walking on the road, not needing sidewalks. So I just offer that.
Part of the mention of that too is that there's the construction of sidewalks or the provision of a fee in lieu for construction of sidewalks in other areas of town. So I'll need to clarify whether this does constitute a subdivision. I was just reviewing the bylaws and it was saying 6 lots or more rather than 6 units or more. So Greg, you
Well,
may have
I-
won this one.
All right, well, I think that's all my comments, and I thank the board for allowing me to speak. Thank you very much.
Barry? Okay, so if there's no other questions, I think we just need to schedule a continuation hearing so that we can, give time to get our Leslie Witten information back, give time to get some information from the other boards back. As Valerie said, she's going to solicit commentary and give us a little more time to really dive into the application and the waivers, and then we can,
Mr. Chairperson, sorry to interrupt. I think there might be one hand raised here.
Oh, you see it there now, yep. So, Val, you want to allow Brittany to speak?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Thanks for pointing that out.
Yes, thank you. This is Christopher Hoyt and Brittany Bethune at 342 South Bolton Road.
Mhm.
We haven't been able to thoroughly dive into the plans and that, but we do appreciate the change in the plans that have occurred and the adjustments that have been made. One question I do have, and it's honestly not even for our own sake, is I know it hasn't been put on the plan yet, but it's the pump for home one. Just more, where will that be and who's responsible for that? I know that it's been discussed, but the same concerns, because it will be right near the water in the well for that unit one. So that's one more just comment. Another question we have is obviously there's now two different sizes of homes that have been laid out here, 4 and 4. We were just wondering if architectural plans have been made to represent these exact sized houses now for this plan, and where are those located? And then do you have anything else?
I don't think so
Okay.
at the moment.
All right, we'll leave it at that for now. So, and I sorry, before we just want, I also concur with Barry with the sidewalk comments and that and the lighting, and I'm just reaffirming everything that he said as well, and the not having the fence on the basin and all that. I second all the comments that
As
they're.
long as those proposed walls at the entryway obviously are not too high, because it obviously, our peak of our driveway is probably the worst of the road in terms of sight line, but like adding any kind of wall there probably might not be a good idea, just because it's pretty dangerous pulling out of our driveway as it is, and will be very dangerous to the residents if there's any kind of obstruction.
Yes, and obviously with the intention of 6 of the 8 being 55 plus. So yes, I want to make sure it's safe for the people that live here as well. So.
Thanks for the comments. Any questions?
Greg, you want to take, I'll take the architecturals. So
Okay.
as we've been downsizing these homes and moving them around and so on, we have some existing architecturals, but not for these units as the way they're set up right now. I know that they'll fit in the footprint, but to actually have all the little jogs and all that, I'm waiting for the architect to give me the final plans, because the units have changed in location and so on.
So we'll be getting those as part of the hearing process, though.
Yep.
Perfect.
And I'll commit to clarifying location on the unit 1 pumping system for you, so that we can lay that out for you a little bit more clearly. And then the entrance walls, it's a great point relative to site distance. We'll make sure we review that as well, to make sure we don't want to cause an issue on there either. Those are really intended to be low landscaping walls, just sort of decorative to dress up the entrance a little bit, make that a little bit more aesthetically attractive, and sort of welcome you into the development. Not intended to be anything high or tall. So, but we'll make sure we dot that I, cross the T on that site distance impact or lack thereof. So.
Perfect. Well, thanks. I see no more hands up. So You can look at your calendar, Valerie, and do we have a target time? You think when we'll get something back from Horsley Witten? And
Yeah, I think they were saying it's possible by early next week. However, I have a planning board meeting Wednesday and a master plan meeting Thursday. So I don't know if a Tuesday.
I can't, I'm out of
Meeting
pocket
would be-
this week. I have no availability.
Well,
So,
we're gonna need time to, I mean, I'd like to think that we'll get a nice clean letter with no comments on it, but I gotta believe we're gonna have to clean a couple things up.
right.
So I would imagine, we'll need a few, week or two to do that.
Okay.
So are we looking at maybe early April?
Sounds like that. So that first week for me, the 4th through the 7th is wide open.
Okay, and that the 4th, let's see, what are those days? What,
So Monday the 4th through Thursday the 7th.
okay, Monday, Thursday.
So Tuesdays, just as like a pretty hard, fast rule for me, are pretty much not available anytime moving forward because we have lacrosse now. So, I mean, it would be if we did it later in the evening, I guess, but at 6 o'clock, I couldn't make that.
Right. Okay.
So
How about that Wednesday?
Wednesday is fine for me.
And that would be the 6th.
Mhm.
How's that work for,
Fine for me.
time for Andy, Brad?
Yeah, at the moment it's free.
Yeah.
I don't, I haven't looked at my calendar, but I'm guessing that will work.
Yeah, and the intent will be not to back like we have this week, another 40B tomorrow. Well, if we have another one, we'll schedule for another week after that or outside of that one. So, Gabrielle,
So
does
it's
that work for you? The
it's
6th?
6 p.m. on the 6th is what we're talking about.
That's what we're talking about. I want to confirm that Gabrielle will be able to meet that date.
That works for me.
Oh, perfect. So it looks like the board has availability for that. Why don't we propose April 6th at 6 p.m.
Fine for me.
Okay,
A motion to continue to April 6th at 6 p.m.
Second,
And members in favor, Gerard Ahern,
yes,
Andy Kishitz,
Yes.
Brad Reed,
Yes.
Gabrielle Amano,
Yes.
and Elizabeth Hutchins.
yes.
oh, sweet, perfect. All right, so well, thanks for the information tonight and participation, Jim and Greg, and I think it was really a good movement tonight. You know, it's
Yeah, I think it was, and I appreciate everybody's time. Have
right.
a good night.
So,
Great
thank
effort.
you. Yeah,
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
I know. So Valerie, I think you said we won't have minutes because that was the next agenda item was sort of the admin stuff. We're doing-
Yes, yeah, right.
Okay.
Been spending too much time on 580 Main, so ready for tomorrow.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll thought a motion to adjourn and then we should be fine.
Move we
So
adjourn.
motion.
Okay,
And roll call vote, Gerard Ahern,
yes.
Andy Kishitz,
Yes.
Brad Reed,
Yes.
Gabrielle Amano,
Yes.
and Elizabeth Hutchins.
Yes.
All right.
Thanks, James. See you tomorrow.